Hello and welcome to day 11 of the 14-day practical AI challenge where you stop guessing and you start prompting. I'm your host, Engineer Victory, and today is another day in the 14-day AI challenge. Today we're going to be looking at something quite interesting, unlocking ideas with AI. We're going to look at how to use AI as a thinking partner. We're going to look at using AI to unlock ideas and to look at different perspectives of the ideas you come up with, right? We're also going to consider using AI as an idea generation partner. So you can use AI to generate ideas, and then you can use AI as a thinking partner to develop those ideas and bring them into real life marketable products or real life marketable reality or whatsoever thing you're trying to accomplish. Whether you're interested in looking at developing ideas for a product, or you're interested in developing ideas for content, or developing ideas for maybe a paper or an article you're looking at writing, you're in the right place. So let's get right in with day 11. All right, so where our theme for today is creativity on demand. Creativity on demand. So because of the data and the information which was used to train many AI agents, it's possible for you to have creativity on demand with AI agents, right? Before, we used to have what is known as writer's block. We used to have all these things that could stop the ideation process, but with AI agents you can basically develop more ideas and develop your ideas into deeper, more well thought processes with the right prompts, right? Because AI is not limited by exposure. AI has a vast plethora of data and information which was used to train it. So basically, you don't need to be in a sense so well exposed to be able to have your ideas being well exposed when you work with AI, right? So let's look at why AI is a powerful tool for ideation, right? So the first thing we have here is AI has a breadth of exposure, which I've already mentioned. You don't need to have that wide depth of exposure yourself, or that wide band of exposure, for you to be able to consider other aspects of a particular idea once you are working in the ideation process. All you need is AI, and all you need to be able to do is prompt it in the right direction, provide the right information, provide the right context, paint the right narrative, and you should be able to be on your way to get what you wanted, what you want, or what you're looking for. The next thing is AI breaks mental echo chambers, right? So because of our environment and sometimes the way we think, we sometimes encounter mental echo chambers when we are looking at generating ideas. And what are mental echo chambers? Basically, it's a um I would put it this way: it's a situation or a state of mind where you cannot basically think beyond your environment, due to the fact that your environment is basically built to reinforce itself. So you may be in a local community where the things that are currently happening in that community reinforce itself, and it's very difficult for you to think or to see beyond that community. AI agents are not, limited to mental echo chambers. They're not limited to a particular community, say for example a homeless community, say for example a high-rise community, or say for example a community of people who have no for example graduate level education, or a community of women, community of men, community of children. AI agents do not have those mental echo chambers, and as such they can be very, very quite broad in their ideation or in gathering data to back up a particular idea you're working on. So that's something which is quite interesting and quite good to know. AI accelerates divergent thinking, right? Because of the plethora of data and information which was used to train AI agents, it encourages divergent thinking, right? So it can gather information to corroborate a particular idea, or consider different aspects and consider different points, or bring up different issues and different points, which would ensure that at the end of the day the idea comes to a particular point, or they all lead to a particular result which you're looking for. For example, let's say the particular idea is centered around productivity. That's what the particular idea you're looking for is centered around. AI can basically generate more ideas or generate supporting material that will corroborate that fact and lead to a dive well to a single point of that particular idea which you're looking for. And then also, because of still its exposure, it can diverge and consider other aspects, other areas, other industries, other points of views which you may not have considered because maybe you do not have the exposure, or maybe you do not have the knowledge of those systems. And one more thing, AI has already built the neural pathways for data and to see how this data is kind of like interlinked and interconnected. That's what deep learning and machine learning is all about. So you do not need to necessarily form those pathways again, but you can leverage those pathways to basically see how ideas corroborate and how they intertwine to produce beautiful results. So basically, yeah, it accelerates divergent thinking. AI helps you go deeper, not just wider. So divergent thinking, you go wide, right? But AI also has the ability to go deeper because that same data which was used to train AI is quite in-depth, is quite very deep, is quite specific, and is quite distinct. And because of this, AI can go quite deep in the particular idea or developing the particular idea you're working on, or in its ideation process. It can go very deep. And you see the beauty of this and how this works in practice when especially you use and utilize constraints and limitations when you're working with AI in ideation, right? Let's continue. AI brings data informed angles. Right. So because AI is data backed, right, it brings data informed angles. It does not just spin up things in the air. Sometimes we human beings could come up with ideas and then later on find out um, data that corroborate those ideas. And sometimes the data may not present what we are looking for, or the data may lead to something else. But with AI, you can skip that entire process. Maybe before that process could maybe take a couple of days, maybe months, or even years to be able to, reveal the truth of the eventual endpoint. But because AI can go deeper, and because it has the data, it can basically help you to understand whether that idea is a data backed idea or whether it falls, when you bring it against the data, right? We have AI reduces creative intimidation. There is this issue with most creatives whereby because they have not mapped out every part of the idea yet, they are quite intimidated to release or to start working on it. And as a result of that, we have great and brilliant ideas which are limited, and sometimes we don't get to experience them immediately when the world needs them, right? But with AI agents, you can develop an idea and build it into what it ought to be so that you can, skip the whole phase of creative intimidation and then get to start working on your project, get to start working on your idea to release that idea immediately. I have had several situations where I've had an idea and I've been able to develop it using AI agents, right? So AI as a thinking partner, not a replacement. So one thing you should understand is AI should serve as a thinking partner and not as a replacement to your own brain or a replacement to your thinking process, right? It's a thinking partner. So it kind of like helps you to think and to work through the ideation process, eliminating, the ideas and the results that are not viable to the general idea or to the specific point which you're driving at, and then look for the corroborating facts and the corroborating data that eventually supports the idea you're gunning for. So it's a very powerful tool for ideation and to use as a thinking partner. Now let's look at our framework, our prompting framework. Now our prompting framework for today is the create prompt framework, or is the create prompting framework. So C stands for context, R for results, E for end user, A for angles, T for tension or constraints, and then E for expanding ideas, right? Expand the idea. So what is C is the context. You need to be able to establish the industry or the environment surrounding the idea which you're trying to build. So for example, let's say the idea is centered around the academic industry, or the idea is centered around the food industry, or the idea is centered around your personal industry, right? Your own personal life can be considered in this case as an industry or as an environment. The idea could be to serve you, maybe ways in which you could become more productive, right? Could be ways in which you could become more productive. So the industry in that case would be your daily life and your daily routine. That would be the industry, that would be the environment, that would be the context, right? The context is you basically, right? So we are looking at results. So what kind of idea are you trying to produce? Are you trying to produce an idea, to become more productive? Are you trying to produce an idea for a business environment that is going to help you generate, a particular business product? Are you trying to develop an idea for personal use? Are you trying to develop an idea in the medical field, in the medical industry? Because the end point and the results of the idea which you're trying to build is going to describe that ideation process, and is going to kind of like advise you or determine the constraints and the other aspects of what you're trying to build. So for example, let's say you are trying to develop an idea of a particular meal for someone for a young adult male. And then maybe for example, we have one option which could say maybe for a school setting or for a university setting, and we have another option which could be for a work or professional setting. That result is going to greatly determine the course which you're going to take in the ideation process, because the results, although they may look similar, but yet they are quite different. The environments are different, the elements of that environment are different, and as such you have to consider every single aspect of that particular environment and of that particular result in the ideation process. Next thing we're looking at is the end user. So who is this thing for? Is this thing for you? Is this idea for the public? Is this idea for a particular audience? Who is this audience? Who is that audience? Is the audience your family? Is the audience your consumers? Is the audience your friends? Is this audience maybe the people who watch you online? Or is this audience where, for example, your church members or people in your local community, basically? So who are the end users of this idea or of the product which this idea is going to generate at the end, right? You need to be able to answer that question. Then we are going to look at the next thing is angles. You need to be able to force a variation and consider other angles, right? Even though you may be working in a limited, how can I put this? You'll be working in a limited, very constrained environment, right? But you must still be able to consider other angles from that same environment. So for example, let's say you're working within a school system. A school system can be a very restraining environment where you don't have the breathing room to do a lot of things. But in that school system, we have different point of views and different angles. We have the angle of the students, the angle of the teachers, the angle of other staff which are not teachers, the angle of the principal. We have the angle of visitors and parents. So there's a very various angles to consider just for the same process. Now, the angles which you're looking at, they do not eliminate the constraint, right? They do not eliminate the constraint. The constraints, they even kind of like help you to identify the various angles, because the constraints will tell you what you're supposed to look at and what you're not supposed to look at, right? Now, no matter how constrained and no matter how tightly packed an idea is in a particular context or in a particular use case, there are still various angles, and you should be able to consider the various angles when working in the ideation process or developing the ideas for that particular product or outcome you're trying to achieve. The next thing we're looking at is the constraint or the tension. T stands for tension or stands for constraint, right? Creativity improves with limitations. Creativity improves with limitations, right? So for example, if you can define your use case specifically and narrow it down to a specific endpoint user, to a specific particular location, you can improve the idea to match that particular person in the best appropriate way. Let's say for example, you're trying to develop a particular wear, right? If for example that particular way you're trying to develop let's say on the basic level, you can say you're developing a particular wear, a particular clothing brand for people. It could be a male, it could be a female, it could be a man, it could be a child, it could be a boy, it could be a girl, right? So for example, an example of such a product could be a cap. A cap could be worn by a man, a woman, a boy, an adult, a child, whoever it could be, right? But now let's say you're trying to create a cap for boys. You're trying to create a cap for boys. Now you're trying to create not just a cap for boys, but you're trying to create a cap for boys in sports, and you're trying to create a cap for boys in sports who are also in high school. Now that's a very, very specific idea. That's a very, very specific idea you're trying to do. And with all this constraint, it's going to help you to be able to better develop that product, because there are certain things which a boy who is in high school who is also into sports, there are certain things which he needs which other people don't need. There are certain things which he prioritizes which other things don't prioritize, right? And you can go a notch deeper by defining the sport. It could be volleyball, it could be baseball, it could be soccer or football, it could be American football or rugby, or whatever it may be, right? The more specific you are, the more you can tailor that idea to the particular end user, to the particular use case. The end user could be you also. So you need to be able to define the constraints that are going to be suitable for your own personal environment. For example, let's say you're trying to develop a cap for yourself, right? What are the things which you like in caps? You're going to be able to define the color, you're going to be able to define the material, you're going to be able to define the size, you're going to be able to define the style, the branding. You know, there are various kind of hats you can choose from. You can choose a cowboy hat, you can choose a bow hat, you can choose a face cap, right? There's various ideas you can choose from, but you want to tailor it to your own particular branding and to your own like. So you're not just going to pick any kind of style that's available out there. You're going to look at what appeals to you. So the more specific and the more tailored, right, an idea can be, the more creative that idea is going to be, because it is specified and tailored to a particular end user, right? That end user could be you, could be your mom, could be your family, whoever. And then finally, we're looking at expanding ideas, right? So the first part, or the first element of the create prompt or the create prompting framework, is to help generate the idea. What this last part of the create prompting framework is to expand the idea. So for example, we create an idea, we create the various ideas: idea 1, idea 2, idea 3, idea 4, idea 5, and then we expand them and look at what they entail. Sometimes when you look at an idea at the surface level, you do not understand. It does not directly tell you what that idea is going to entail. It does not directly tell you what that idea is going to imply, right? But if you can expand it a little bit or expand it detailing, you're going to understand what it implies, and then you're going to understand the various environments which that idea is going to thrive in. And that way you can know whether that idea is really going to be suitable for your use case or not, right? So for example, let's say you're trying to develop a food product for maybe children at, let's say, in middle school, in secondary school, children who, and for example, they just left, let's say children in, let's say, about grade 7, grade 8, right? Now, you could say this food needs to have great coloring, it needs to have an appealing design, it needs to have this texture, it needs to be created from flour, it needs to be created from this and from that and from this, right? And then now you expand, you come up with 3 different ideas. Then you expand these ideas into, for example, let's say short biscuits, let's say cake, and then let's say, for example, maybe muffins, right? Now, once you expand the ideas with AI, maybe the AI is going to tell you, if you're trying to create short biscuits, it's going to imply that you're going to have to spend so and so amount of time in the kitchen. You're going to have to spend so and so amount of money to get products, and you're going to have to spend so and so amount of money to develop this particular elements to form this product, right? So when that expanding is done, you can now understand option A is going to cost me so and so amount of money, and it's going to cost me so and so amount of time. Option B is going to cost me so and so amount of money and so and so amount of time. These are other variables and other elements associated with the idea that may not make it, may not be included in the ideation process, and it may not be included in things like the constraints, right? But once it is expanded and you can see the implication of the various ideas you've come up with your in your ideation process with AI, you can now understand, okay, so this one is not going to be suitable for me because my budget does not allow this, or this one is not going to be suitable for me because my lifestyle does not allow this. I'm a one-man team and I cannot basically do all of these things alone, right? So if I'm going to be able to do this alone, I need to go for option 3, because option 3 provides me the best results for my money and the best results for my time. Maybe when I can grow the business or grow whatever thing I'm doing onto a certain level where I can work with other people, then I can consider options 2 and option 1, right? But as far as I am concerned, for at this particular point in my life, in this particular phase at which I currently am, I cannot execute option 1 and option 2, or idea 1 and idea 2. I would have to go with idea 3, right? The fact that you can expand the idea is going to help you to understand which is going to be like perfect and more suitable in your use case. This expansion does not have to be very, very detailed. It can be surface level expansion, but it should definitely include all the various parts and points, or the various implications of that particular idea, right? Now we're going to look at good and bad prompts for this particular framework. So we are starting with this good prompt, right? Now let's see what this person is saying. It says, I work in a mid-sized logistic company operating in urban areas. Now that's part of the context. It's part of the context. That is providing background to your situation, providing background to your person, providing background to your environment. Let's read further. We see the context. It says, rising fuel costs and customer demand for faster same-day delivery, right? That is the context. The context is this rising fuel costs, and then there's an increased customer demand for faster same-day delivery, right? So the customers want to get their products on time, or they want to get their products faster, maybe within a particular time period, depending on the size and the weight of the product. And we're going to look at the results. Generate innovative service or operating improvement ideas that can reduce cost while improving delivery speed, right? So the results which this particular person is gunning for is innovative service and operating improvements. So these services or these ideas have to be innovative, right? Because if they were not innovative, right, you should have known them already. They should have been kind of like available in the industry already, right? Sometimes you may be able to use AI to develop new ideas which are not currently found in the industry, because AI can quickly make the connections to various parts and parcels of your environment, of your particular use case, to bring up things which other people might not have caught, or maybe other people have caught before but might not have come public with those ideas, right? Or they have not implemented them yet. So that's the particular result which this person is gunning for. We have the end user. The end user is a small e-commerce business that relies on this logistic company for their last mile delivery. So this e-commerce business could be maybe a fashion store, it could be maybe a food delivery, a food delivery product, a food delivery company rather. It could be a company that produces things that are tailored to its users, for example tailored hats, maybe tailored caps, or tailored whatever. It says small e-commerce business. It could be whatever, but it's a small business and it's e-commerce, right? So we're looking at the angle: provide one conservative improvement, one technology driven situation, and one disruptive business model shift. Now we are looking at this from different angles, right? Now the fact that we know the context and we know the results, right? Let's just skip ahead and go to the constraints and the tension before we are going to come back to the angle. We have solution must be realistic within a 12-month implementation window and moderate budget, right? Now those are the constraints to this particular idea which this person wants to generate with the AI agent, right? Those are the constraints to the ideas. But within that constraint, within that environment, within that particular eco chip, within that particular tailored environment which this person has described, there are various angles, and one angle which we can look at is a conservative improvement angle. This angle looks at improvement but from a conservative point of view. It does not want to disrupt things so much. It does not want to do anything that's going to be disruptive, or does not do anything that is going to affect day-to-day routine, right? Something that maintains the state of operation and the state of the business while prioritizing improvements, right? And then we have one technology driven solution. Now this solution basically it's coming from another standpoint, the standpoint of technology. How can we use technology to basically improve the services and then improve operations so that the company can end up having faster delivery speeds? That's a technological approach or a technological angle. And then we have one disruptive business model shift, a disruptive business model shift, which is also another angle whereby we come up with ideas that have the possibility to disrupt the daily operations of the business, yet improve operations, and then the idea in itself is going to be innovative, right? So those are various angles which you can consider. And then we're looking at the expand, the last part. It says after listing the ideas, expand the most promising one into a basic execution roadmap with key risk and potential ROI factors. ROI is simply return on investment. ROI simply return on investment. So this is a great prompt for somebody who is trying to generate ideas for his business, right? This is tailored to a particular business case, and the fact that this person has been able to tailor and be quite specific about his use case, the ideas are going to be much more better, much more tailored to his use case, and will be much more capable of helping him. The ideas are not going to be generic ideas. The ideas are not going to be basic level ideas, but they are going to be powerful, and they're going to be so strong that the end user is going to be able to use these ideas to basically achieve his initial set out goal, what he set out to achieve at the beginning. Now let's look at another example of a good prompt. Here, I am a freelance content creator building a YouTube channel focused on DIY home electronic builds, Arduino projects, small home devices, beginner robots, and custom circuit boards. Right now, this person is somebody who, if you may not be into electronics and know all of these things, but if you, for example, I'm just going to give a little bit of background to this so that those who do not come from a technological and engineering background can understand what this is basically talking about. So DIY simply stands for do it yourself at home. So DIY home electronic build, so Arduino projects, smart home devices, beginner robots, and custom circuit boards. So basically this entails you building electronic devices at home, right? Now these things don't have to be massive, these things don't have to be so big. They are small, they utilize small components, and they're electronic devices. So for example, you could build a system whereby once you clap your hands your light comes on, or when you clap your hands your light goes off. Or maybe you could build a system which controls how, maybe for example, your tap operates in your kitchen. Maybe you could build a system whereby once you put your hand in the tap comes on, water flows. Those are electronic products. Those are just some of the examples, right? There are other examples, and basically it's a wide field where there are lots and lots of things which you can do, but those are just some of the examples for you to get an idea of what this person is actually doing and what is this particular field, right? So he's looking at content creation in the niche of electronic products, personal electronic products, do it yourself at home, those kinds of things. We're not looking at maybe building a phone or something very complex. We're just looking at things which are easy to do at home, which are simple, right? So the context here is the DIY electronic space is competitive, and many tutorials are either too advanced for beginners or too basic to stand out. Now that's a good context because he's providing the AI agent with the context in the market space, with the context in his field, right? He has first of all provided the background, right? He starts by giving a background, and then he now talks about his context. But you could still combine the two, the background and the context, into one particular statement. It's kind of like the same thing. It's not so different, but it's still okay. So he has basically said to the AI agent, the DIY electronic space is competitive with many tutorials. either too advanced for beginners, or too basic to standard. So he's trying to look for something which is going to appeal more to viewers, which is not going to be too long, it's not going to be too advanced, rather it's not going to be too basic. So somewhere, just right somewhere in the middle. What's his result? The result is looking for a generate differentiated video series ideas that balance beginner accessibility with creative, impressive builds, right? So he wants ideas, but the ideas for video series, right? Since he's a content creator. Now this could be you're a content creator, maybe you produce content on maybe football, maybe on sports, maybe you could produce content on filming, you could produce content on your personal brand. Your personal brand could be you're a chef, your personal brand could be maybe you're maybe a motivational speaker, you may be a life coach, maybe whatever, you may be a fashion designer, right? So, and you're trying to develop context around your particular niche, your particular branding, your particular industry. So you'd basically be able to, you have to narrate it and inform the AI agent of that industry, and this is what this person is doing or has done. So generate differentiated video series ideas that balance beginner accessibility with creative, impressive builds, right? And then we're looking at the end user. The end user is a tech curious beginner and hobbies who wants practical, affordable home electronics. So he has been able to tell the AI agent what his results are, and then also define who his end user is. So someone says when you're into content creation, you should be able to have an idea of the kind of people who are the perfect ideal client for watching your videos, right? And then you should be able to basically build your personal, you should be able to build your content around that person. Now that you can basically collapse that entire audience into one person, and then if you can adequately describe that person, then you can now tailor your content to that person, right? So in this case here, this user has been able to identify his end user for his content on YouTube, and his end user is a tech curious beginner and hobbies who wants practical and affordable home electronic projects, right? So those are the elements of his end user, the elements of his consumer. Then angles include one budget friendly series, one skilled progression series from beginner to intermediate, one creative problem solving series that builds devices to solve real household problems. So these are quite various angles which he knows in which are relevant to his field, right? So these angles are different angles relevant to his field. Maybe you're looking at food content creation. What are some of the angles which you can look at? We can look at maybe a budget friendly series. You can look at maybe a how-to series where you teach how to achieve different things which are maybe uncommon or which different people do not know how to do. And then maybe you can also look at maybe a specified maybe a vegan series, or maybe a protein series, or maybe a drink series, a healthy diet series, maybe a only vegetable series, whatever, right? So basically you need to look at the various angles and the various POVs that are related and associated with your own particular use case. Then we're going to look at the constraints or the tension, right? The project must be affordable, components under $100 per build, minimal specialized equipment, and be realistic for a solo production. So now there are many things which you can do when it comes to DIY home electronic builds. Some of these things can be complex, large scale things, and some of them could be simple, basic things. For example, let's say you're trying to build a complicated face recognition system that stores maybe data on the people who are living in the house, and then when you come to the door, it recognizes your face and then opens the door and lets you in, right? Now for you to be able to develop that project may be more than $100, because looking at the various components which you're going to need to buy to be able to build that, you may have to spend more than $100. So that is one of the constraints which is looking at. He provided a budget constraint, he provided an equipment constraint, and then he provided his production constraint because he's a solo producer. So he doesn't want to have to develop something that is going to be beyond his current setup. Since he's a solo producer, he cannot develop he since he's a solo producer, he cannot develop products that are going to need him to do that with maybe he's going to need him to do that with a couple of people since he's a solo producer. So he needed to definitely include that in his prompt, which is something wise to do. And then finally, the expand clause, it says take the strongest series idea, outline the first 5 episodes or the first 5 episode titles with short descriptions and required components, basically, right? Then let's look at the bad prompts. We have the bad prompt one, which doesn't follow the framework. So we have give me some innovative ideas for a logistic company. Give me some innovative ideas for a logistic company. This prompt does not follow the framework. It does not follow the create framework. It does not provide context. It does not provide results. It does not provide all the elements of the, it does not provide the aspects and the elements of the create framework. And as a result, the response is going to be quite, generalistic or quite basic, right? So why? There's no context, there's no audience, there's no business objective, there's no constraint, there's no direction or path. So it's going to produce generic suggestions like use AI, improve marketing, adopt automation, no actionable. There are so many things you can do, in a logistic company to improve operations. One of the things you can do is marketing. One of the things you can do is streamline operations, maybe by cutting costs. Another thing which you can do is maybe, for example, maybe you could hire a lawyer to look at your legal procedures. Maybe you are, for example, spending so much money on your legal costs. Meanwhile, you could be doing it, in a cheaper, more affordable way. So those are all various ways of improving operations for a logistic company. So you need to be able to understand which one is going to be the most suitable for your own use case, right? So he needs to be able to provide context and all of these things, which this user has not done. At the end of the day, his results are going to be quite bad, quite poor, quite, how will I put it, quite generic, right? Well, I'm going to look at bad prompt 2. Give me YouTube video ideas for DIY electronics. Give me YouTube video ideas for DIY electronics. Now, this is also a bad prompt. This is a beginner level prompt, in my opinion, and does not really produce the kind of results which you're going to be looking for or wanting to get out of AI. So no audience definition, no budget consideration, no differentiation, no content positioning, no sustainability thinking, right? So it will likely generate build a robot, Arduino beginner tutorial, generic, saturated, unstrategic. So these ideas at the end of the day are just going to be similar to what is already available in the market, right? Or similar to something which is already available to people in that space, which, you're just going to be, it's not going to be innovative in any way. And at the end of the day, it's not going to achieve, anything special because it's not different from what is already available there. So yeah, basically. Let's look at our AI mindset for today. Our AI mindset for today is don't ask for ideas, design thinking environments. Our AI mindset is do not ask for ideas, develop thinking environments. Now, it's great for you to use AI to develop ideas and to get all of that, but use AI as a thinking environment. And what does this mean? Use it as a thinking partner. Build in the various elements of your reality into your prompt, into your chat, into your conversation. And then once you've done that, it's going to be a suitable environment in which ideas naturally flow or which ideas naturally come into, right? So do not use AI, just come and just like give me 5 ideas, do this, do that. No. Use it as an environment where ideas normally come in, and then it's thinking it's normally natural in this, right? Let's go to our live coding walkthrough, our live prompt walkthrough. Sorry about coding. I'm going to go to our live prompt walkthrough, and then we are going to look at one of the things which we are going to consider is the prompt from our example, the second prompt from our example, which talks about the content creator in the DIY freelance industry stuff, those kinds of things, right? Now let's look at the prompt one more time before we begin. Remember, I'm on ChatGPT, and this is my signed in account in ChatGPT. So yeah, whatever idea stays here. I'm a freelance content creator building a YouTube channel focused on DIY home electronic builds. He stated. Now we look at the context. This is the context. The DIY electronic space is competitive, and many tutorials are either too advanced for beginners or too basic to stand out. You know, what is the result? He's looking for generate differentiated video series ideas that balance beginner accessibility with creative, impressive builds. Who is the end user? The end user is a tech curious beginner, hobbyist who wants practical, affordable home electronic projects. What are the angles he wants to consider? Include one budget friendly series, one skill progression series from beginner to intermediate, and one creative problem solving series that builds devices to solve real house problems, right? Then we have tension and constraint. Project must use affordable components under $100 per build. Minimal specialized equipment, must be realistic for solo production. And then we're going to look at the expand element. It says take the strongest series ideas, outline the first 5 episodes with titles, with short description, and required components. I'm going to change this because I do not want it to go into a very deep dive. Sometimes I find this quite overwhelming when AI um, gives a very long answer to my prompt, and at the end of the day the answer comes with lots of things which you have to look at and consider. Sometimes I just want the response to be concise and straight to the point, and it should focus on one thing, right? Don't do too many things at the start. So at this expansion, I'm gonna just ask you to take the strongest, recommend the strongest series idea for expansion, and end there. So we're gonna say here, recommend the strongest series idea for expansion. That way AI is going to handle one thing at a time, and I, the user, I'm not going to be overwhelmed with whatever AI is doing. So let's see what we're going to get. This is a great niche positioning. You're aiming for approachable but impressive, which is exactly where DIY channels grow faster. I'll give you a 3-directional series concept aligned to your constraints and expand the strongest one into a scalable format. I'm going to pause here. Before we continue, I want you to understand that once you're signed into a particular AI agent, maybe ChatGPT, maybe Gemini, maybe Grok, all of these things, these chat agents actually learn. They study you, right? That's why in the previous lesson I said, very careful the kind of information you share with AI agents, because this information is gathered and it's stored on servers, and if there's any data leak, the information could be out there. But one thing which you need to understand is the AI agent studies you and then it understands you. One thing I can ask this AI agent is, looking at our discussions from the past 6 months, who describe me accurately, right? It's going to be able to describe me, see who I am. It's going to tell me my name, tell me what it knows about me, tell me what it knows I do, tell me where it knows I am based, tell me things it has been able to deduce from my conversation about my personality and about who I am, basically, right? Now these things are quite powerful when it comes to building niche products like this, right? So one thing which I'm going to advise you to do, if you're somebody who uses AI heavily when it comes to business and professional things, and these professional things are not so much associated with your personal life and with your day-to-day, maybe what you do maybe personally back home, and then you also use AI a lot for personal home things, I would advise you kind of separate them, right? Have one account in which you talk about professional things, and then have another account in which you talk about home things, right? That way it's going to be able to tailor its responses to you, professionally, when you come looking for professional related questions or professional related answers. And then when you come looking for personal related answers or personal related whatever, use the other account where you focus on only personal stuff, right? Now let's continue here. This is a great, we've already read that, so we're going to see the first we're going to see what it came up with. Now this doesn't seem to be too much, right? We can easily go through this. We have budget friendly series name, $30 smart builds, core concept. Each episode builds a useful smart device using ultra low cost product. The hope is you don't need expensive gear to build cool electronics. Format structure, problem intro, whatever. It provides the structure for this particular idea and then provides example episodes, right? Then it says why this works: strongly great value, reduces fear barrier for beginners, encourages binge watching. This is very bad. This is very bad. This is a very, very bad thing. Content creators, don't do binge watching. Don't design your content in a way that it encourages binge watching. You're creating couch potatoes out of people, and that's bad. If your content is quite valuable and people learn from it, yeah, design your content quite well. Keep building, but don't develop your content in a way that people are just going to be watching and watching and watching. People definitely do need some time off their screens to go and sit down and to be able to even implement what you've told them to do. So please, content creators, let's be careful. All right, so we have visual identity. Price badge and thumbnail becomes your brand signature. It basically gives various things related to this particular whole structure and all of that. And then we see skill progression series name from zero to maker. A structured video where viewers level up skills across episode. Each video introduces one new concept while reinforcing previous knowledge. Think of it like a Netflix series, not random tutorials. Episode 1, blink LEDs plus breadboards explained. These are basically electronic related ideas. Why this works: creates commitment. Viewers follow the series, positions you as a teacher, not just a builder. Blah 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 blah. We have series name. This is idea number 3. I built this because it annoyed me. Okay. Every episode solves a real house frustration using electronics. This adds storytelling plus relatability and so on and so forth. Strongest series for expansion. I want to build this because it annoyed me. I built this because it annoyed me. This has the highest long-term growth ceiling. Here's why: most DIY channels focus on how. This focuses on why. Story tutorial. People don't just watch to learn, they watch to relate. Quite true. Expansion strategy for winning series. Scalable episode formula. You can repeat this endlessly. Annoyance idea, build, test, reflection. There are infinite household annoyances. You never run out of content. Community engagement loop. Ask viewers, what should I fix next? Comments become your content pipeline. If you know this guy, there's this guy on YouTube. His name is Electro Boom. If you're into electronics and all of that, his products kind of like follows his content sometimes follows this particular niche, where he looks for annoying things in his house and then fixes it, using his skills, and then he shares that knowledge through video. So that's a great implementation of this idea. Tier difficulty expansion: start beginner, later evolve, core, platform content, and so on and so forth. All of these are good, right? You can now expand this and then create content for whichever thing you're looking at. This is a very, very great. You can, for example, come here and you choose whichever of these ideas you are interested in, and then you expand it, right? But sometimes this is not quite nice, this approach, because it's kind of long, or not that it's kind of long, but the response is kind of long and the response is well tailored. But I kind of prefer a chat, a layered communication with the AI, right? Now let's do something like that. Let's say we can focus only on content creators today, or we can dive into other things. Let's say I am a mom of five. I once did this thing with someone. Should I use that particular use case or should I not? Let me see. I cannot use that use case because that was somebody's particular use case, and I'm not, an experienced professional when it comes to working with those kinds of people. So let's look at something else. Let's say I'm a mom of five and I'm trying to get my children to eat healthy foods, more often, but I want the foods to be nice and appealing to them. I want this AI agent to help me generate ideas for food, for basically cooking, or making food that is only not only healthy but is good and appealing to my kids, right? So let's do that. I'm gonna just paste the previous prompt from the first example, and then I'm going to do some elimination and some stuff. So I'm going to take off this background, and then I'm going to put my own background. I am a mom of 5 kids, right? I'm a mom of 5 kids, all below the age of 10, for example, all below the age of 10. It's possible she had twins, or maybe she had triplets. What is the context? The context is this, right? What is my reality? Let's just take this out. So my context is my kids are all young and like eating unhealthy processed foods rather than healthy alternatives. Right? That's my context basically. My kids are all young and like eating unhealthy processed foods rather than healthy alternatives. Let me say processed foods and drinks, right? Because not only processed foods and drinks rather than healthy alternatives. What is the result I'm looking for? Generate ideas on how to tackle healthy meal preparation. Not to tackle healthy meal preparation. That, how will I put this? Generate ideas on how to tackle healthy meal preparation that will appeal to my children's taste buds. To get them eating healthy foods basically. And then we're going to look at the end user. Now, who is the end user here? That's what we're going to look at now. So the end user is my kids basically. So my kids are the ones who will be eating the meal, right? Will be eating the food. While I will be cooking, right? Now, what are the various angles I want to look at? What are the angles I want to look at for this particular ideation process? Include budget friendly options and other options that do not take so long to cook. Also present some options where everything is done from scratch. Maybe, for example, ice cream from scratch, or maybe particular health drink from scratch, maybe like Coca-Cola or whatsoever. Let's see, tension or constraint. What constraint can a mom of 5 have? Let's say my constraint is my daily schedule is quite busy. Is my daily schedule is busy with lots of activities. Let's say my cooking time is over the weekends. My cooking time is over the weekend, while during the week I just want to heat the food, right? Want to heat the already prepared meals. So that's our constraint for this particular use case. And then expand. I don't want to expand this. I'm just gonna say recommend the top 5 ideas for recommend top 3 ideas for expansion. Top three ideas that I can expand, right? Now I'm going to come over to the result and I'm going to say generate. I'm going to give the number of ideas 10 meal ideas, right? The written ideas on how to tackle healthy meal preparation. Let's say generate 10. Yeah, that's okay. Let me go over this whole thing and then we look at this. It says context. My kids are all young and like eating unhealthy processed foods and drinks rather than healthy alternatives. Generate 10 ideas on how to tackle healthy meal preparation that will appeal to my children's taste buds to get them eating healthy foods. Also add some meal examples. Because what this person is looking for is healthy meal preparation ideas. And then we're looking at the end user. My kids will be the ones eating the food while I will be the one cooking. The angle include budget-friendly options and other options that do not take so long to cook. Also present some options where everything is done from scratch. Various angles. Tension. My daily schedule is busy with lots of activities. My cooking time is over the weekend during the week, right? Yeah. I want to eliminate. I'm going to just add some things. I want to eliminate processed foods and drinks from their diet. Full stop. Right. Let's see what we are going to get with this particular prompt. Hopefully, we are going to get something great. It says, love the way you're thinking strategically. Instead of trying to fight 5 kids' taste buds every day with your schedule, the key is weekend batch cooking, kid-friendly flavors, smart presentation. Not perfection. Here are 10 practical systems, not just recipes, that make healthy eating habits easy and repeatable. So we have first one, healthy fake takeouts. Recreate the foods they already love but homemade. Kids don't hate healthy foods, they hate foods that doesn't feel fun. It's an interesting concept. So kids don't hate healthy foods, they hate foods that doesn't feel fun. Meal example, oven baked chicken tenders plus sweet potato fries. If you can do that at home yourself, it's definitely better than the one you get at the restaurants. If the restaurant is not a local, maybe restaurant which sources its ingredients maybe from farmers, but rather sources them from corporations and supermarkets, then the ingredients could likely be highly processed food, food elements, whatever. DIY taco balls, baked nuggets plus veggie mac and cheese, air fryer fish sticks. This is quite interesting. Weekend prep, cook in bulk, freeze, reheat during the week. Budget tip: bulk chicken thighs, breast from scratch option. Make your own breadcrumbs plus seasoning mix. Right? Build your own meal bar. Kids eat more when they feel in control. Kids eat more when they feel in control. Okay. Set up containers and let them assemble. For example, meal examples: burrito balls, wrapped bars, pasta bars, rice plus protein plus veggie combos, loaded baked potatoes. Prep everything Sunday. Cook protein, grain sauce, portion into containers. Now, first of all, this is tailored to the Western cuisine. I can definitely go back in my prompt and edit it to focus on another cuisine, for example, Mexican cuisine, Chinese cuisine, Japanese cuisine, African cuisine, Nigerian cuisine, Cameroonian cuisine, whatever, right? I can specify it to any cuisine which I like. But let's just continue down this, and then we are going to later on prompt it to redo everything, specifying on a different kind of cuisine. Hidden veggie upgrade system: blend vegetables into foods they already like, not tricking, just upgrading. Meal examples: pasta sauce with blended carrot, zucchini. This is a great example. I recently saw a lady doing this where she created muffins for her children to eat, but rather than using water to mix the batter, she rather blended a couple of vegetables and then mixed it with the batter, or mixed it with the flour and all the other ingredients, and then baked it and then produced the healthy alternatives that included vegetables in there, which in my opinion is a great way to tackle that, because your children still get to eat what they like, but it's a healthier version. And once they get to like that version, at the end of the day, they would hate what they get from outside, because what they get from outside does not compare with what they get from home. So not tricking, just upgrading. The meal examples: pasta sauce with blended carrot, zucchini, smoothies plus spinach with banana, mashed potatoes with cauliflower, meatballs with grated veggies, oatmeal pancakes with blended pumpkin. Kids taste flavor first, not nutrition. That's a smart approach, right? I like this way because this, is presenting the user, who is a mother, various approaches to cooking rather than giving her the various meal options, so that she looks at the way she needs to change and adjust her cooking work set. So she's not just cooking. For example, if I just ask the AI agent to just give me ideas of various meals to cook, it will give me various meals which are definitely easy to do. But there's not going to be so much information like this. It's not going to give me the ideation process and tell me why these meals are good for my use case. But the fact that I asked it to give me meal prepping ideas, this is better than just getting answers on the various meals which I can cook, if I was the person who was actually doing this, right? We have sauce rule: healthy foods become exciting when sauces are fun. Make 3 healthy sauces every weekend: yogurt, ranch, honey mustard, mild salsa, hummus, peanut sauce. Suddenly veggies equals to deep food. Children eat deep happily. Freezer friendly mini meals. So this is quite good. I'm just gonna skip all this to it. Remember, we asked it for 10 for 10 ideas, right? Top 3 ideas: healthy fake takeout, build your own meal bars, freezer friendly mini meal. That's good. That's great. I'm going to kind of like ask it to redo regenerate the ideas, but rather focus on, let's say, Nigerian cuisine, or let me say Cameroonian cuisine, not Nigeria, but let me say Nigerian cuisine, and limit the idea count to 5, right? Limit the idea count to 5. So now we are no longer doing Western cuisine, American cuisine, we are doing Nigerian cuisine. You need to understand these AI agents were built with data predominantly um, focused on the Western environment, Western structure, Western laws, Western economy, Western way of life, Western cuisine, Western people, and all of that. Now, the data also expands to cover elements from all around the world, but once you come to engage with it, it works first of all with Western data. If you want it to focus on a particular area of the world or data from a particular area of the world, you need to tell it, you need to inform it. So focus on this, for example. Don't look at the Western economy, focus maybe on the African economy, focus maybe on the European economy, maybe on the Asian economy, whatsoever. So you need to be able to inform it of what you want, basically. So let's see. Love this. Nigerian food is always rich, flavorful, family friendly. The goal isn't to reproduce culture with diet food, but to prepare Nigerian staples in healthier, kid-friendly batch preps ways that survive a busy week. Right? We have healthy Nigerian lunchbox classics. Kids, kids accept foods they recognize. So we have cooked stew in bulk, tomato stew, basically oven baked chicken, which is already similar to what we already had before. Nigerian mini meals for freezer snacks. Kids slice Nigerian food home wins. Make small handled versions of favorites. Weekend prep freeze meal examples. Mini moi moi. Big puff puff. All these are great examples. Okay, I think I'm going to. This is just, well, this is a great way to show how you can, basically, do this. And then let's say I want this thing to focus on, maybe I want to go a little bit deeper. I want the meals to focus on providing the nutrients my kid needs to grow healthy, but also I want it to provide, let's say, healthy. Let me say, I want the meals to provide the nutrients they need to, for example, get a particular nutrient because there is this particular nutrient deficiency in my area or in my environment, right? So let's say um not minding the cuisine, um regenerate the ideas and make them tailored to an environment with make them tailored to convert an environment where low protein low protein in food is a problem. Also, the idea should prioritize balanced diet, right? A balanced diet to promote healthy, balanced growth in children, right? Let's just say we are trying to tackle that from that angle, or from that environment, or from that particular standpoint. Let's do that, and then we're going to see what we're going to get. So basically, we now have this, right? It's focused on protein and then focused on balanced diets. So we have number one, protein and meal system, protein snack replacement, hidden protein upgrade system, weekend protein batch cooking system, and then balanced growth plate system. Top 3 ideas. That's great. Now that's great. Um, I'm going to look at one more thing. We're already beyond 1 hour. Let's just take 10 minutes and then I want to do one ideation process because here we've just been prompting it and it's been giving us the ideas, right? I want to do an ideation process with this from scratch. So let's say I'm a uni student in final year and I'm looking at writing my final year project, right? Or I'm looking at choosing my final year project and I want to work with AI to develop the aspects of my final year project or whatever it is, right? I am a uni student in, let me say, electrical engineering, for example. In the final year, my project is centered around using let me say improving accessibility. This is a very, very niche example. I'm not going to use this example. This example is a very, very niche example. I'm going to let me look at something else which affects everybody and daily. Right, so help me. I'm going to run an ideation process basically with the AI. So this is an ideation process basically. I want to select the appropriate clothes for variable weather condition. Help me select the best options, right? Now this prompt is not the best prompt because it does not follow the create framework, right? So but it's a start, it's just here as a starter, and at the end of the day we can build and then go on and then get what we're looking for. So what are we starting here with? We have the response is core principle, three layered system, base layer, mid layer, outer layer, pants, and so on and so forth, footwear, accessories that solve everything, right? Then now we can keep looking at, we can change the temperature system, change the weather conditions, and then look at various things that are concerning this particular ideation process, right? But basically you need to understand that whether you're using the create framework to get the ideas or you're just using a layered messaging structure where you ask it a question, you get the feedback, and then based on the feedback you ask more questions. Whether you're using any of the two to get your ideas, AI is a great thinking partner for your idea, generation. But you need to you need to be specific with what you're trying to do. And I do not want to give an example that's going to be too specific and then it's not going to relate to a lot of people, right? So I think the first two examples which you looked at, the example of the mom of five and all of that, that's quite relatable with a lot of people. And then the first example, which was called content creation, that's also great and it's quite relatable with a lot of people. So we're going to end here for today. And I'm just going to say, if you have any questions related to the content which we covered today, let me know in the comment section. And then I am going to tackle those questions in adequate time. And then if there's need to create another video, I'm definitely going to do so to respond to those questions. So thank you for joining me today. This has been the 14-day practical AI challenge with your host, Engineer Victory. See you tomorrow on day 12. Bye bye.